Good evening, Nigeria. Good evening, Africa. I remain your host, Ibrahim Umarwasi, and this is Politics Inside. A soldier walks into power with a gun. The world reacts with sanctions. The people with silence or resistance. Tonight, Niger stands at the crossroads. The junta leader, General Abdourahamane Tchiani, has now crowned himself president. Democracy has been suspended. Foreign powers whispered in the shadows, and the streets of Yamai ask, is this the birth of a new leader or another African strongman clinging to power? Is dictatorship in Africa unavoidable, or do we finally have the will to rewrite history? Tonight, we dissect the truth. Stay with me.
From this moment on, the President of the Republic of Niger, Head of State, Army General Abdourahamane Tchiani.
Tonight, we ask a difficult question. Is dictatorship in Africa unavoidable? The military leader of Niger, General Abdourahamane Tchiani, has now taken full control, transitioning from a coup leader to a self-declared president. The international community is watching. West Africa is holding its breath, and here in Nigeria, we must ask, is this the beginning of a new era or a dangerous step backward? Let's understand what this means, not just for Niger, but for the world. Niger is a small country, but its strategic importance is enormous. It is one of the world's largest producers of uranium, the fuel that powers nuclear plants from Paris to Washington. It is also a battleground for influence. France, the former colonial ruler, has long depended on Niger for energy security. The United States has military bases there, hunting terrorists in the Sahel. Russia, through its Wagner mercenary, is seeking new alliance. And China, it is eyeing Niger on top resources. So when a junta leader refuses to step down, it is not just about Niger's future. It is about a global power struggle. From Mobutu in Congo to Mugabe in Zimbabwe, we have seen military men take power, promise stability, and slowly morph into dictators. So again, I ask, is history repeating itself?
Within this framework, the stakeholders who will be invited will set about formulating concrete proposals within 30 days, leading to 1. Define the fundamental principles that should govern our transition. 2. Define the priority of the transition, which should last no longer than a few months.
Some argues that African democracy are weak, corrupt, and ineffective. They say military rule is necessary. But let's be clear. History has shown that military rulers do not fix broken systems. They silence critics. They centralize power, and more often than not, they refuse to leave. Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger military juntas are rising across West Africa. Their leaders promise reform, and the people, they are left with fewer choices, fewer rights, and fewer opportunities. So what's the way out? First, we must address the root causes of these coups: weak institutions, corruption, and economic hardship. African leaders must be accountable. If democracy is to work, it must deliver not just elections, but jobs, security, and justice. When governments fail, military takeover become inevitable. Second, regional bodies like ECOWAS must reform. If ECOWAS is to remain relevant, it cannot just issue sanctions and threats. It must create real economic opportunities for the people of West Africa. It must push for political solutions, not just military interventions. And finally, we Africans must take charge of our own destiny. Foreign powers will not solve our problems. France, the US, Russia, and China, they all have their own interests. If we want true sovereignty, we must build economies that do not rely on foreign aid. We must strengthen institutions that outlast politicians, and we must educate a generation that demands leadership, not rulers. Africa, we must ask ourselves, Are we a continent of strong men or strong institutions? Do we want leaders who serve us or rulers who dictate our fates? And when will we stop repeating the mistake of the past? Because true power is not in military uniforms. It is in justice, economic strength, and a people who refuse to be ruled by fear. The world is watching. The future is uncertain. The question is, will Africa rise or will we repeat history once again? Africa watches as a soldier treads his uniform for a suit, as democracy bends under the weight of the gun. But here is the truth. Power taken by force is never freely given back, and every time we allow it, we push the dream of true African leadership further away. Nigeria's fate is not sealed, but it is at stake. The world will watch foreign powers interfere, but in the end, only one force can decide its future, the people. So I leave you with this question. Will the people of Niger accept this as their fate, or will they rise and rewrite their story? The world is watching. The future is uncertain. The question is, will Africa rise, or will we repeat history once again? I remain your host, Ibrahim Umar Wasi. You are watching Politics Inside. The drums of war are beating again. US President Donald Trump has issued a chilling warning. Bombs will fall if Iran does not bow his demand on the nuclear deal. This is not just a threat. It is a move in a global game of power where oil, influence, and military might dictate the fate of nations. And Africa? We may not be on the battlefield, but make no mistake, we are in the war, because every missile fired shifts the tide of global threats, politics, and survival. And tonight we expose what really at stake. Tonight we unravel a story of power, war, and the high-stake game of global influence. US President Donald Trump has issued yet another threat, this time warning that he would bomb Iran if negotiations over the nuclear deal fail. The question is, why now? And more importantly, what does this mean for Africa? Let's be clear. This is not just about Iran. This is about global control. Iran sits at the crossroads of energy politics, with the world's fourth largest oil reserves and strategic influence over the Strait of Hormuz, a narrow passage through which 20% of the global oil flows. If Trump makes good on these trades, oil price will skyrocket, economies will shake, and as always, Africa, dependent on fuel imports, will bear the burdens of the crisis. The West will suffer inflation, Asia will scramble for alternative supply, and Africa, we will pay more for fuels, food, and everything in between. For a continent already battling inflation, currency depreciation, and debt crisis, this is a disaster waiting to happen. But beyond oil, this is a masterclass in military posturing. Trump knows the power of threats. He understands that war is not just fought with weapons, it is fought with perception. The US has over 45 military bases surrounding Iran. It has the most powerful navy in the world patrolling the Gulf, and yet Iran has shown it will not be intimidated.
The enmity from the US and Israel has always been there. They threaten to attack us, which we don't think is very probable. But if they commit any mischief, they will surely receive a strong reciprocal blow. Direct negotiations have been rejected, but indirect negotiations, Iran has always been involved in indirect negotiations. And now too, the Supreme Leader has emphasized that indirect negotiations can still continue. We not only do not avoid negotiations, but it is the breaches of agreements that have caused problems for us so far. They must prove that they can create trust regarding their decisions, and I hope this will take shape too.
From its proxies in Yemen and Syria to its ties with Russia and China, Iran is no isolated nation. If the bombs drop, Iran will not stand alone.
The implementation of the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action has been disrupted by U.S. withdrawal. The United States should show political sincerity and return to the talks as soon as possible. Sanctions, pressure, and coercion will lead to nowhere.
And here is the chilling reality. Wars do not remain contained. They spread, they disrupt, and they reshape the world order. The US attacked Iraq and ISIS emerged. NATO bombed Libya, and North Africa became a corridor for human trafficking and weapon smuggling. So again I ask, if Iran burns, what will be the ripple effect for Africa? My people, this is not just about missile, it is about influence. And more importantly, it is not about moral, it is about influence. The US and its allies want control over global threats. Iran, a defiant force, threatens that control.
We have said that there is a fatwa. We are working under the supervision of the IAEA and we won't move toward a nuclear weapon. But if you make a mistake regarding Iran's nuclear issue, you'll force Iran to take that path because it has to defend itself.
And in this battle for supremacy, Africa is a silent stakeholder. Let me paint you a picture. If Iran is attacked, it will retaliate by blocking the Strait of Hormuz. The price of oil will soar. Countries like China, major importers of Iranian oil, will push back against US policies. China, as we know, is deeply embedded in Africa's infrastructure, trade, and industry. If Beijing is forced to recalibrate its energy partnership, Africa's economy will feel the shock. The West too will pivot its focus. Washington will push African nation to take a stand, demanding allegiance in a conflict that does not serve our interests. And here lies the danger. Africa will once again be caught in the proxy war of global powers. So, what must Africa do? First, we must reduce our dependency on foreign energy sources. Nigeria, Angola, and Algeria, the oil giant of Africa, must strengthen intra-African trade rather than depend on Western-dominated market. Second, we must embrace renewable energy. Why, in the age of solar and wind technology, does Africa remain at the mercy of oil price set in Washington and Tehran? Third, we must play the diplomatic game wisely. Africa must refuse to be used as a pawn in the chess game of superpower. If global giants want our resources, our market, and our cooperation, they must negotiate on equal terms. This is not just about survival. This is about sovereignty. Africa, it is time to ask ourselves, who holds the power over our future? Who controls the narrative that shape our policies? And when will we stand up and say no more? Because true independence is not just political, it is economic, strategic, and intellectual. The world is shifting, the balance of power is uncertain. And in this storm, Africa must decide. Will we be mere spectators or will we be architects of our own destiny? Africa, the time to act is now. History has a way of repeating itself. We have seen the rise and fall of empires. We have seen the destruction that follows when diplomacy fails and wars take its place. And yet, the same script plays out again and again. Tonight, the world inches closer to another devastating conflict, one that would send shock waves through economies, politics, and human lives. Africa must take a lesson from this. We cannot rely on others for peace, nor can we afford to be collateral damage in wars we did not start. The world may burn, but Africa must rise. The only question is, will we learn from it? The world is watching. The future is uncertain. The question is, will Africa rise, or will we repeat history once again? I remain your host, Ibrahim Umar Wasi. You are watching Diaspora Digital Media. Bye for now.